So you might say, Rod, you've got your mask on. Didn't we just open up the whole country? Well, yeah, but if you watch this video, you're going to understand why I'm wearing the mask. But I'm going to take it off for the video so you can kind of hear me. So here we are. This is the July edition of the series, the COVID Update. And you may say to yourself, why do you keep making these videos? And the reason is real simple. We want to keep you safe. We want to keep you safe. We want to keep all of our students safe. We want to keep your family safe. And we're not out of the woods. It's really, really important that we keep on top of what's going on with this virus, and so that we keep pivoting and adjusting, because it keeps pivoting and adjusting. So a couple of things for the faculty. Amity just updated its written protocols for COVID-19. Get those and read them. This presentation doesn't have all the details and every situation that's in those protocols. Otherwise, we'd be here for about 2 hours, and that's a little much for video. And you know, things keep changing. Sometimes they change on a monthly basis. Sometimes they change on a daily basis. Taze and I made a video last week, which we're going to release this week. But things changed enough where I said, wait a minute, let's not release that. Let's go back and put in the new information so you have that. So where are we as a country? Over 600,000 Americans died in the United States last year to COVID. I mean, that's horrible. You almost don't know anybody who has not been touched by this. Either somebody who got very seriously ill, or somebody who died, or somebody who is still suffering from the effects of the disease months later. So all over the country, we're kind of opening up, and it's summer, and whoop-de-doo. I really want us to be more cautious at Amity, because the mistakes we've made with this pandemic is being a little too enthusiastic about, well, it's over, and then not behaving cautiously. We've got something called the Delta variant. It came from India, which is much more transmissible than the other variants, the original and the other variants, South African, UK versions, which means that unvaccinated people are at greater risk than they were even a year ago. And even vaccinated people, there's some risk here too. So you're looking at a slide now, which is a great slide to look at. You're seeing like in December, where there were almost 300,000 new cases, and now you're seeing the average of new cases in the country about 4,000, 7-day average about 11,000. So there's been a dramatic decrease. Why? Because a lot of people got vaccinated. So let's talk about the Delta variant. About half, now this is why we decided to remake this video. About half the adults infected in an outbreak in Israel. And Israel is, I mean, off the screen in terms, they've got almost 80% of the population vaccinated. They've done an incredible job. The Delta variant, they had an outbreak, and over half of the people who were infected were people who were vaccinated. Okay? So I said, whoa, that's pretty scary. Now, the good side of this, the good side of the bad side, is that people who have been vaccinated, both doses, are still protected against serious disease, hospitalization, and death. but it doesn't mean you aren't going to get sick. So the protection seems to go from about 95% for the other variants of COVID to about 83%. So your chances of getting infected go up, but your chances of serious disease or death are still pretty low. So far. Gotta say that. Okay, the mask. Let me remind you all, COVID is an airborne virus. Okay? What we found out over the last year and a half is that most people don't get infected from touching surfaces. So this mania of cleaning we went through, was probably over the top. I don't think it hurt us. It didn't hurt anything, but it's a respiratory disease. And in all respiratory diseases, the nose is the main point of entry, which used to drive me crazy. Or people walking around, they're doing this, and their nose is uncovered. So just keep in mind, it's airborne, and the way to prevent being infected is a mask that covers your mouth and your nose, and a good mask like this one, which is an N95. I'll read this to you. The Delta variant is currently the greatest threat in the United States in our attempt to eliminate COVID-19. This is Dr. Fauci speaking. The good news, he said, is that vaccines authorized in the U.S. work against the virus. We've got the tools, he said, so let's use them. And then you're going to see over on the right-hand side, here's why vaccinated people still need to wear a mask. And it kind of describes it. Now, interestingly enough, CDC is still a little lagging behind. WHO, the World Health Organization, said, wear your mask. And we'll explain in what situations you should definitely be wearing your mask. Certainly inside. And there are even situations outside where you should be wearing a mask. Here's Dr. Robert Watchler, the chair of the UC San Francisco Department of Medicine. Quote, I tend to see the UK, United Kingdom, as the US a month ahead. They seem to get the variants about a month before we do. Their vaccination rates have been a little ahead of the US, and so the fact that the Delta variant went from a few cases to become the dominant variant in a month or two in the UK means that's what's going to happen here in the United States. Centers for Disease Control estimated the Delta variant made up only 2.7% of new cases in May. By last week, it accounted for 10%. In this past week, it rose to 20%. And the reality is it's doubling every 2 weeks, which means that by the end of July, it will be probably 100%. Those who've received both doses of Moderna seem to be fine from all variants so far. However, the fact that these people in Israel with the Pfizer vaccine got infected is not good news. Now, they didn't die, they weren't hospitalized, but they did get infected. Johnson & Johnson vaccine doesn't appear to be very effective at all against these variants. So while states are opening up, there's reason for us to remain cautious and thoughtful. Don't throw your mask away. Hold on to it. So what's the risk? The virus is still circulating very widely in the world. There are countries where not even 1% of the population have been vaccinated. Now, of course, that is party time for the virus. And particularly because this virus is much more transmissible. So it's burning through these populations. And the longer the virus circulates, the more variants appear. And so far, each variant is a little stronger than the last one. So if it keeps circulating before we get everybody in the world vaccinated, there's a high likelihood that one of these variants is going to appear that our current vaccines aren't effective against. That is frightening and gives us all good reasons to be cautious and to keep acting with all these safety protocols so we don't inadvertently be part of that particular scenario. So here's a cartoon. It shows the it shows the vaccine with getting COVID-19 on the deck, but the variants show up to, help it out. And that's exactly what's happening. It's an accurate cartoon. So at Amity, if you're vaccinated, what's the story? If you're inside, stay wearing your mask. I know it's a drag. We were all kind of ready to lift that. Hand wash, social distance. If you're outside in a well-ventilated area, and I emphasize well-ventilated, you can remove your mask. But be aware of this. There's a study that came out this past week of someone outside exposed to somebody who simply walked by them who was infected, and the person they walked by was not vaccinated. 15 seconds of contact, they got infected. So, that's, again, kind of a wake-up call. That's how transmissible this Delta variant is. If you're in a car, van, bus, train, plane, or if you're going to outer space with the Amazon guy, wear your mask. Okay, all transportation, wear your mask. If you're off work, be cautious. I go into a grocery store, I'm still wearing my mask. I really am. I'm just, because I don't know. And you won't know either. And why risk it? Even if I'm pretty well protected, I'm not totally protected. And okay, I've had my shots. I'm not going to die or be hospitalized, but I don't want to be sick. I mean, what's the point of that? If you're not vaccinated, why are you not vaccinated? That is really the question. Get vaccinated now. Get over it. Unless you have some medically defined health condition that puts you at risk of being vaccinated, and I hope that's not the case, you got to protect yourself. You got to protect your coworkers, our students, your families, your friends. So while you're unvaccinated, you got to follow all the protocols, and if anything, you got to be even more protective and more safe than you were before, because the risk of you getting infected is greater than it has ever been. Let's be super cautious with our unvaccinated coworkers. We have some coworkers who are not vaccinated or can't be vaccinated. Maybe the same for students. They're either reluctant or they may have a health condition. But we got to really be careful with them until they are vaccinated. There was a recent study in Scotland, again last week, this stuff is really up to the date, showed Delta to be 50% more contagious, and people infected were twice as likely to be hospitalized as those infected with other variants. So this thing is scary. The more people who are vaccinated, the paradox is the greater the risk to the unvaccinated. The virus is like, where's the next victim? So here's a little cartoon, and guy dancing out, thank God it's all over. I don't want to go back to a pre-COVID routine. And the next picture is him in a hospital bed. Don't let that be you. How about visitors and family members? If they have proof, and I don't mean verbal proof. I mean written proof. Something like I posted here. I posted my vaccination card. We need to be sure that they're vaccinated. Then they can operate pretty much as our faculty can. You know, they could visit outside, unmasked, with their vaccinated students. Otherwise, back to square one for everybody. So they got to remain masked and socially distanced, and all those protocols that we've gone over many times over the past year. I'm going to read this to you because most of you who are watching this are in California. And this is from the LA Times this morning. Highly contagious Delta coronavirus variant spreading fast in California. As of this morning, the Delta variant now makes up 14.5% of coronavirus cases, up from 4% just a month ago. So it's going to double. I'll skip down to the last part of the slide. Experts say the Delta variant poses a greater chance of infection for unvaccinated people if they're exposed. Twice as transmissible as the conventional coronavirus strains. And you've got lockdowns going on in Britain, which was opening up because of this variant. Little cartoon, young lad writing on the blackboard, I will not get within 6 feet of others. If you're not vaccinated, yeah, definitely. So you've had your shots. There's still some things we're not sure of, but we have some actually good news here. How long does your immunity last if you had COVID? How long does your immunity last after my vaccination? Study again this past week, it may be lifetime. Now it's a small study, we don't really know yet, but it looks like it's long lasting. And then in fact, the antibodies get stronger as time goes on rather than getting weaker. Well, that's really good news. Certainly hope that study, as we continue to study and they have the number of people in the study gets larger, sure hope that trend is the one that, because that would mean that you would need a booster shot, except there's that little caveat, which is, how about a variant that penetrates the current antibodies that they're not effective against? Well, then we got a whole new ball game, or we have the same ball game all over again. So stick around. You know, we're going to keep making these things until this thing is buried 6 feet under, and we'll keep informing you, and your campus or site director will keep bringing this stuff up so that you're well informed. What's the big picture? We won't have really suppressed this virus until 75 to 85% of the entire world has been vaccinated. And that probably is going to happen until 2023, 2 years away from now. Lots of time for the virus to party down and for new and more virulent variants to emerge. So there's lots of good news, but again, the theme of this presentation to you today, caution, danger, be careful. Things are better, but the pandemic is definitely not over. So let's keep being safe. And we end with this odd cartoon of a guy doing a high jump using a syringe as the pole. But one of the things, it is very, very clear, the only way out of this pandemic is getting everyone vaccinated. And until we have everybody vaccinated, being cautious, being safe, thinking what if, and that will ultimately get us out of this particular situation. But until then, we all have to kind of do our part. So thank you very much. Please share this widely, not only within Amity, but you're certainly welcome to show it to your friends, your family, passers-by. You can hold out the link by the freeway on a sign, whatever. But it's just important for as many people as possible to understand that although things are considerably better than they were, we've still got quite a ways to go.